Welcome to episode 62 of the Driving Forward podcast. It's Thursday, January 9th, 2025. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Reese Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. Next week, Thursday, at 1 p.m. Central Time, we have my co-host Robert Bain on, as well as Dale Prax, founder and president of Freight Verify, and Joe Orr, COO, and Ben Wilkins, cybersecurity specialist with the NMFTA. That's the National Motor Freight Traffic Association. We'll be discussing the freight fraud epidemic, especially talking about identifying threats and how to take action when you are experiencing a threat. Freight fraud is growing at an incident rate of 800%. In 2023, it was an $800 million problem, and it's expected to come in at a $1.2 billion problem in 2024. Cybercrime globally is a $10.5 trillion issue. And the two topics are very close in design. We'll continue to shed light on them together. If you're going to manifest, please use our link for a discount code. manifestvegas.com/freight movement, FR8 MVMT. We'll be chatting later about a fairly large after party we're putting on Monday evening. We'd love to have you all join us there. I've been pretty quiet since before Christmas, and it was a nice break. I don't typically go quiet. Last week, I had a minor surgery, nothing serious, but it seems off this week, and that if I seem off this week, that's likely the reason why. I'm still practicing a bit of medicine, and I think we should be good to go. But as we all know, 2024 wasn't that great of a year for our industry. I recall stating that last year as well, and the year before. We've all struggled for a long time here in this industry, and I've had friends that have been impacted, friends that have lost their businesses, or their businesses have at least been significantly impacted. I've had so many friends that have been impacted through employment adjustments that I can't even count it at this point. And it's been tough times. But we talk partnerships, we talk networking, and we talk friendship. When I look back on 2024, I think struggle, but I remember friendship. I remember networking, and I remember partnership. The last year truly has been that. I attended 21 conferences or events last year, each one with meaningful intent. I've interacted with thousands of people, including colleagues, customers, and vendors. This has led us to formalizing a company to help us and others structure these activities as we launched Freight Movement to do so. You'll see a lot more out of Freight Movement in 2025, starting at Manifest. Today's episode is likely packed with bold predictions and expert analysis on the future of freight and logistics. We'll bring on the crew. I'm calling this team the crew going forward. I think I mentioned Super Friends on social media, and for the geeks out there, maybe you got that reference, or the older people. But when it comes to talking about the future, it's hard to assemble a team to beat this group. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's great to have you all on.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Oh, hi. So I'm not sure that we really need to do a lot of introductions, but let's just do a quick round table, because sometimes our network gets to be a little different than some of the usual network. So Bain, you're on a lot, so just say hi. And
hi.
Grace.
Hi. Hi, Grace Sharkey, staff writer of Freightwaves, radio host on SiriusXM, friend to all here. So happy to be on the show, especially starting the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to first time on the show too. So
yeah,
it's I've been on your show a few times, but never had a chance to bring you on. So I'm super happy to start it this way with such a great team. So Mr. Leffler, we'll go with you.
At its head there rode a tail, a tall and evil shape, mounted upon a black horse. If horse it was, for it was huge and hideous, and its face was a frightful mask, more like a skull than a living head.
Right,
and in the sockets of its eyes and its nostrils there burned a flame.
Okay, Chad. You're good, Chad. Go.
He's going to try and speak over it. Chad Olesen, CEO of AVRL. Happy to be here.
All right, appreciate it, Chad. Oh, sorry, they brought you back on, and then I muted you again. So, oh, there you are. Sorry.
My name is Matthew Leffler. I am the armchair attorney. I'm a professor of law at Michigan State University College of Law, and I've been in the transportation business for the last 15 years. I'm excited to be here and talk about what the future holds for supply chain in 2025.
Oh, beautiful. Wonderful to have everybody on. And I don't remember. I do remember her first showed up. So I think we're going to start our round robin. We're just going to jump into this for 2025. We are not going to have enough time. I feel like we could spend a whole day talking about this. And with the way that the green room went and with the way that the discussion was going with social media, we better just jump into these topics. So, first person in the green room was Matt. So Matt, why don't you kick off with the first topic? What do you want to touch on for 2025?
But this is incredible. The longshoreman strike was averted. We knew that by January 15th, 2025, that extension was going to expire. What was at issue was never about wages. It was about automation. And it appears over the course of the weekend, there was a meeting that took place. A deal has been struck. It was announced yesterday. We do not know at all what that deal looks like. It's not going to be revealed to the public until after all of the members of the ILA take a look at it and ultimately vote on this. But we are talking about every single port except for, Savannah across the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. This is what could have been the biggest supply chain crisis of 25, and it has ostensibly been averted, but it is an interesting thing to keep thinking about.
I don't think any of us thought it was going to be averted. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I said we were walking into this crisis right away. So
there was an interesting article Lorianne Rocco put out on GCaptain, but also CNBC. And what it talked about was a deal that was discussed kind of privately that would allow a new technology coming into the ports, adding additional workers. So this was kind of this trade-off of you want to bring in technology, okay, but we're going to make sure that increases our overall membership. But this is 40,000 or so workers, 36 ports across the United States. It is a massive, massive catastrophe that has been averted. And we won't get to experiment with whether or not Trump would invoke Taft-Hartley or other things. So this, again, is a very important story that we're going to continue to see happen.
And every broker disappointed.
We love the chaos. The chaos is what drives margin.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Anyone else have anything else to comment on that one? Otherwise, we'll flip to, I think Bain was next then.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what the compromise was, once the deal gets revealed, right? Because they compromised on the wages, 62% wage hike over, I can't remember if it's 3 or 5 years.
6 years, over 6 years.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm interested to see what the overall compromise is going to be. There will need to be some implementation of automation, but to your point, Matt, also bringing additional headcount is going to essentially negate whatever savings were going to be there from the automation. So, but again, it'll be interesting to see what actually comes of this deal.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that too. It's especially interesting because a lot of at least publicly, what they were fighting against automation wise is already used or being used, if not for this contract that just ended, but 2 contracts before. So I am interested in what that deal looks like in regards to the technology side. The one thing I'm hoping to, we're coming out of election, going into a new administration. I am hoping to see a little bit more clarity, though, from the government. The one thing that they have asked over and over again is like actual reports and research being done that shows that these jobs are being created for them for the jobs that are displaced. And there hasn't been really that research that's been done that the government promised to do. There is a light governmental report on automation kind of as a whole, which does lightly touch on the port side. But what is surprising about that is just in the one piece that they discussed in the port automation is that the amount of investment that goes into it and how quickly new technology comes into play, it hasn't been the best investment for tech companies to spend their time in. By the time that automation, that technology is figured out and implemented, there's some better technology that comes in its place, and it's pretty much outdated. So even though this is done, and of course happy for the logistics aspect of today, I think the question of how efficient our ports are is still widely out there. So again, while this it's issue of whether or not we're going to see a strike is done, I think there's still a lot more that could be done in making our ports more efficient and realizing how are we going to get that done with investment dollars that aren't paying out to those investors as well. So I think it's still a huge discussion we can continue to watch.
To cap on what you just said, Grace, implementation timeline is massive, and it's with the advancement of technology, not even just in the ports, but anywhere. That's someone everyone needs to pay attention to. If you have a 3-year implementation timeline on anything right now, with how fast technology takes to implement, or with how fast technology is advancing and how long it takes to implement, if someone comes to you and says it's going to take you 3 years to put this in place, by the time you have it in place, you have something old. And so you can't do that. But that being said, 3 years from now, if you start implementing something, what's that implementation timeline 3 years from now? We can't predict that. So eventually you have to take a step to modernize. But you can't sit there because in 3 years,
not if we didn't strike about it.
So right, exactly. So, but valid points. So, all right, Bain, you're the next one.
As far as what we're going to see in 25,
25.
We're going to see a bloodbath.
Yeah,
I'm going to call it now. Make the clip, put it out there. I'm going to call it right now. You're going to see an exit of capacity, whether some of those organizations want to or not. And that's going to be both on the trucking and the intermediary side. It is unfortunately necessary. And then you're also, we've already seen it. And I think, Chad, Nate and I talked about this a little bit. There will be a flurry of M&A activity over the course of 25 and 26.
It's happening. I'm tracking like 15 right now.
It is going to blow our minds how much goes on.
Yeah.
And some of these deals aren't going to make a lot of sense, but they're going to happen.
Well,
we're seeing some large asset-based companies who haven't traditionally focused in brokerage talking about raising money and going and buying larger brokerages and splitting their model apart. I think that's going to be a super common theme across the board this year.
Yes.
Top line play. And it's going to be at pennies on the dollar acquisitions, all top line play. And it'll be sorting out what's the best for the asset. And it's going to be mid-market organizations that'll grab, and then the companies that can't get it done fast enough are just going to fall off.
Well, you have motor carriers that took out loans to buy equipment at the height of the pandemic that can't afford those notes anymore.
Correct.
The rates aren't going to rebound until probably mid of Q2. So there's a long line of time before people start running out of capital. And I think the brokerage model, it's not a 30 or 40% margin gain, despite what people who advocate for broker transparency are talking about. It's a game of pennies, 14% on average. So we're going to see, I think Bain and Chad are exactly right. We are going to see interesting companies that have struggled to make it by white knuckling it, trying to see, can I outlast my competitors? Some of them will make it, some of them won't.
I think that's like the huge caveat to that whole thing, right? Is like no one wants to be first because first sets the valuation and sets like the market, and you don't want to be first. You want to sell your brokerage on the way up. Being first is bad in this game.
Right.
It is.
One deal I think we're going to be seeing hopefully this year is FedEx Freight being spun off from FedEx itself. And I think that's a great move because FedEx Freight is fighting against Old Dominion in Pitt, Ohio and Saia. They're not fighting against Amazon. That's who FedEx is actually fighting against. So these companies need to be able to separate those businesses and focus on their core competency. So LTL, let LTL do what LTL does and let the parcel people do what parcel people do.
Parcel, sure. I think the asset side, what we're going to see is the strong companies, and we don't even know who they are in many cases, the strong asset carriers that are coming out of this downturn with strong balance sheets, be able to go into M&A and grab these broker plays and we don't even know who they are. They've been quietly operating successfully for the last 3 years, and they're just going to start picking off top line revenue plays and applying that to their asset capacity and growing a non-asset side. In the past, you would see ratios of 20-30% non-asset, 70% asset, and I think the future is going to be more 50-50 for these $500 million organizations.
It's going to be an interesting play. I was on the phone with a broker earlier this week who had been acquired by an asset-based company already. And over this last RFP cycle, asset-based carrier starts to see their rates increase, but brokerage starting to see less volume. And asset-based carrier turns around to broker and say, we want to see the same exact results. Broker's like, I can't because those loads are going to you. And so it's like an interesting game, right? That the carrier also has to learn how the brokerage model works in order for this to work correctly.
That's always a swing there, and based on the market condition, but and that's always been the battle. But I think the other side to go to the bloodbath route is when these deals can't be successfully negotiated in the timeline they need to be negotiated because many companies don't have their pulse on their cash flow. We're going to see companies just pop. And I think there are people that have been on a downhill slide for a long time, and they've been basically holding off from the crash. And there's an upturn, but they're just not going to be able to pull out of the dock. And I think we're seeing that already this year.
We are. I think, Grace, your coworker Clarissa did a great summary article on some of the closures and some of the other things that happened in 2024. Again, it's going to accelerate for 25 because you look at all these different things going on with rates not coming back up. You've got banks going to start calling these notes. Matt, to your point about people that took out all these loans, and some of these deals won't get done. And the deals that do get done, you're going to see that capacity folded in. And it will still disappear from the market because, again, you've got the redundancy of, one carrier who already runs half this lane. They acquire somebody who's running the other half or third of it, and they just put it on their assets or they change that mix up. So that will impact, ultimately net positive for the industry. But there are going to be some very, very painful, acute pieces of that.
It's also important to note, this is not a new phenomenon. This industry has always been feast or famine. Most people came in the business at the pandemic and they saw always sunny, always growth, always high margin. And it's just not that way. This is a business of operating ratios of 90% or 95%. It's not a business where you're making money hand over fist. So this is just the natural cycle of how transportation works in a deregulated industry.
All right, next. I don't know who was here next. Was it Chad or Grace?
I'll go.
Yeah, Chad.
I'll go.
Okay.
I had just gotten off a conversation with Les at Good Ship, and where I think that there's about to be a massive shift on the shipper side away from 4PL. I think that a lot of the shippers right now are really not satisfied with the service that they're receiving from some managed logistics service companies. They're not excited about the amount that they're being charged for 4PLs. And as automation starts to come into their market, they want to consume that work back. Like they could easily invest that money in automation and consume it back in-house. And I think you're going to see a massive shift or that start to happen with the shipper side.
I think that's just exactly what it sort of goes with what we were just talking about to some levels.
Mm-hmm.
Just the weakening and the securement of they can do it in-house. They can do it with their own technology platform, and they don't necessarily need. It's the realization of the evolution of the market. So
I think a lot of shippers watch what Convoy wound down and they said, what have I done? Like, what have I put all of my eggs into that would allow me to have to take my money I owe a broker and put into a federal court case to see who the carriers are that are going to get paid? This pendulum that Chad mentions about shippers taking this back in-house, private fleets growing. We see this happen from time to time. But the thing I think is different this time around is we see cases like Werner Enterprises in Texas. If you're a private fleet and you're like, I can do this better than the for hires, that liability you take on is astronomical. You look at the Wabash case, this has got the biggest private fleets in the world quaking because that implication is so massive. So while there is this trend, I can see shippers bringing more stuff internally, they have to be mindful of the risk that's out there because it is a brutal business.
Yeah, I think where my mind first goes is like, let's say you work with like an Uber Freight or a Transplace, and they're literally just managing your logistics services, and you've outsourced that completely. Like, you're paying these companies millions of dollars to just fucking put your loads in a routing guide. Like, you know, the value that is not there for what they're seeing. And this is what we've been talking to a lot of shippers, and this is just like consistently what we're hearing them say is that they're currently evaluating it. They're sitting there also watching the media, and they're seeing all this automation come into play, AI being used in really interesting ways. And I think they're starting to get like really curious on like, is it worth me continuing to pay this managed services company to just manage my, like the volume that's leaving my warehouses? I don't know.
This is also a cyclical thing. I actually want to pop Lance's question here again, but this is a cyclical thing too. I mean, having been in the game for 30 years, you'll see shippers push capacity and then bring it back in-house every once in a while too. It's not on the same cycle that you'll see asset, non-asset cycles happen, but you will see private fleet, not private fleet. You'll see in-house transportation, not. And I think automation may throw a wrench into that to some point, Chad, and we'll see something differently. And that might cause the next cycle, to be honest with you. That might be the push for it. But I mean, we've seen traffic be controlled, and right now, you know, the last few years there's a push to get rid of it and not have staff, but pull that back in. But it's no different than a private fleet, not private fleet, and those wane, you know, as need be. Lance brought up a question here, or a statement. He said asset-based companies have a limited time frame to implement significant internal changes to reduce costs and enhance standard operating procedures. And he's right to a point. I would say non-asset companies, their ability is that they can cut the cost of their largest expense, which is their people, very quickly. So an asset-based company has that rolling stock, and they have to be very smart about it. And if you actually heard what I said earlier, where the asset-based companies are now realizing, hey, if we go 50-50 and we're 50% asset, 50% non-asset, that cut can potentially come off the non-asset side because we have such a large book of business. We can secure our asset-based side in a much safer way. So it requires a certain size of organization to do that, but it does not have to be an enterprise level carrier. It can be a smartly run mid-market carrier.
There are some things that asset-based motor carriers can do to control their costs. The simplest thing is to go slower. I mean, we had the FMCSA put out proposed rules of regulating speed at a federal level. That is probably not going to happen. But if you drive slower, you are going to consume less fuel. You're going to have better maintenance on your equipment, better tire overall longevity. And that is why the major fleets do it. So if you're a motor carrier, asset-based motor carrier, and you don't have some rules around speed, there is a way you actually can save money ultimately in that space.
There's Chuck coming in to agree with you there.
I love Chuck. Chuck love. You gotta love Chuck.
Yep, Chuck's a great guy. I
want to piggyback off what Chad said, and I put this in our private chat. You know, there's, with all this automation going on, and especially with all the new validation technology it's going, whether it's facial recognition, whether it's all these different organizations that are validated, so you actually know who you're working with. Mm-hmm. This is going to allow shippers and 3PLs really to start reducing these amount of layers. So I agree with you a lot, Chad, where the 4PL, what is that? Ultimately, it's an additional layer. And what do we do? You know, as a shipper, they pass the savings on to us, the consumer. Mm-hmm. And so the more and more those layers that you remove, what does that do? That allows for hopefully reduce costs overall for transportation, but also, more income for the drivers. And ultimately that creates a safer and less fraudulent overall ecosystem within the supply chain. Listen, people are always going to steal stuff. They want to steal, they're going to steal it.
Yeah.
But the more of these things that are in place and the fewer layers it is, because ultimately when you've got 4 to 5 layers between shipper and driver, it gets real dark as far as who's doing what or whatever. But the fewer layers you have there, it's a lot easier to see what's going on. And that is going to allow for less fraud in the industry.
I think you look at like third party as well. There's a lot of innovation still being poured into the industry daily. You go and look at a lot of 4PLs, like what innovation are they putting out?
Right.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah, not much. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add to that note because, and I hate to like make this a good ship commercial or anything like that, but it is interesting because the times that I've seen and used and maneuvered around that platform, I laugh internally because what you would theoretically ask for in that 4PL, even a 3PL standard, it's like right there in front of you and gamified in a way where I think I literally said this to Ryan, like a monkey could use this thing and really have a huge impact on an organization. So think about the shippers' concern on who they're hiring, right, to kind of manage that 4PL relationship. Now they don't have to, you don't need the smartest logistics person in there to use some of the technology that's available out there to a lot of these shippers to essentially 100% what Chad said, do what their responsibility was the whole time, right? Not just finding new capacity, but down to like, how is that capacity working with my warehouses? Is there time periods where my staff is slow? That technology can showcase that, right? These like various layers of what that managed service should actually be doing this whole time than just, I think our biggest concern, right? Is it just going to load boards? Is it being bid out? Is it going to like these, I don't want to bring co-brokering into this, but is it going into like these systems where it's like, again, like Bain just said, like adding all these layers that add to the complexity when we can just bring this technology makes it very easy, almost to a point where it's like asinine to not consider some of these platforms and start to bring that in-house and not only, of course, have better control, but extra layers, just like telephone, right? Like out of there for miscommunication and a better true visibility of what's happening every day in your supply chain and where the weak points are and getting those fixed.
Mm-hmm. The caveat I would add to that, Grace, is until we have clarity on broker liability under F4A preemption, like if you're
here comes the lawyer. The lawyer's going to ruin everything. I swear to God.
If you're a shipper and you say, I can do what the broker does myself internally, and you carelessly or negligently select a motor carrier in a jurisdiction that allows for the broker to be held liable for the actions of the motor carrier, you're going to go in a big, you're going to lose your job because that liability, $100 million verdict, because you picked the wrong motor carrier. And the Supreme Court has not weighed in. We have Global Trans out in the 9th Circuit. We have Global Trans was 7th Circuit. We have Miller and C.H. Robinson is the 9th Circuit. We don't have clarity. So as you're a shipper, my clients that are manufacturers, if you're thinking about this and you don't have an answer to that broker liability question, do not do that because you need to have an intermediary to absorb the risk for you. That is what you have them for. They save you money, but they reduce your risk.
So can I just like create another entity, Meyer or Kroger brokerage LLC, Matt, and then I avoid that situation completely and have that one monkey working it? Yeah.
Generally speaking, you can do that. Generally speaking,
there we go.
Sounds like a business opportunity.
Not for me, but like,
yeah.
Matt, what you're saying is you can't just
for real.
So I'm gonna put up a question, then Grace has got a thing, then we'll do a commercial, and then we'll do our thing here. So that way we get through at least one round. Said we'd maybe get through two at best. So all right. So Matt Fink. So Matt, you can actually change a setting in LinkedIn that'll fix that LinkedIn user. If you Google it, it'll tell you. Schneider's impressive CTO jokingly quips they only run trucks so he can get his hands on data. There's more going on than advertised at the enterprise level. These folks aren't just going to hand out the recipes. The enterprise level is a whole different game than mid-market and smaller. They're obviously playing at a different level than everybody else. And Chuck followed up with a couple things agreeing with him. But I just wanted to put that out there for everybody. The enterprise level, that 2,000-3,000 truck, maybe some of the 1,500 truck fleets even, or the larger brokerages are obviously playing a different game with different intent than your 500 truck organizations, your $200 million organizations. They're definitely doing something different than the big guys out there. So Grace, what topic do you want to bring up for 2025?
Well, you already touched on it, and I mean, I have to shamelessly plug my new Fraud Watch newsletter here at FreightWaves. I do think fraud is continuing to be a huge issue in the space, and I almost want to tie that less to someone stole my load and almost more into like the cybersecurity aspect of it all. I think is going to be big. Literally in like an hour, my newest newsletter is going to come out. An interesting conversation with Uber Freight on some of the things they're seeing in the fraud space. And I mean, even for them, like, we talk about a lot of these AI chat, phone call technologies. I mean, these bad actors are starting to actually leverage those technologies now to give out, where driver statuses are and take loads too. So like everything. Yeah. So when we invent something or come up with some type of technology in this space, the sad part is that the bad guys are going to find out a way to use it at the same exact time. And so as much as we start to see more and more investment in this space, I think for me, just in the work that I do, a big question I hope to start asking more in 25 is, how are you building this to also make sure the people that are using it are good actors in this space and aren't just grabbing this technology, not selling this to someone who maybe is functioning abroad as well, and they're using it against us at the end of the day. I mean, tech companies, they all want a customer, but are you doing that due diligence to make sure that's being used correctly? And so I think that's what's interesting to me. I always, my time in brokerage, double brokering, dealing with those situations was like an everyday occurrence. But talking even more so today with leaders, especially tech leaders in the brokerage space, it's like, dude, we're being hit hundreds of times a day. Like it's becoming almost like this risk that you have to set up your organization to fight on day one. And I can't imagine how many, especially like some of the companies that we work, these small, medium-sized brokers who are like working under maybe they're not on a cloud like based technology, or it's like housed in their four walls, and they do no due diligence of who comes into that space. They have no idea who has access to their tech. They have no idea what their employees are logging in from, or what type of situations they might be risking themselves to just how their overall tech strategy is set up right in their brokerage. And that really makes me scared, because you look at something like maybe like Blue Yonder, right, where we don't have the full story on that, but in a way, some of these smaller organizations can create these holes into these very large technologies that can take something like Starbucks down and some of these big clients down for a long period of time, and let alone affect jobs and consumers as well. I mean, that's the other thing too. We keep talking about inflation and bringing prices down, and all I keep seeing are signs that prices are going up, and especially just looking at what we're investing in our supply chains alone and to secure them. So kind of a tangent there, but fraud, I think, is big, and I'm excited to kind of lead that beat here at FreightWaves as we go into this. But I get even more nervous of just like in 25, are we going to see someone attacked big time and see big shippers not being able to move and going back? I think, Chad, to even what we talked about, I mean, that is another reason why maybe these shippers are starting to think about who they're working with and how they're setting up their organizations as well. And I just I watch a lot of documentaries on this space. I'm not a technologist myself. If you ask me to code something right now, I maybe ask ChatGPT to do it for me. But I understand, because of the knowledge that I'm continuing to acquire, it makes me more nervous knowing not only how brokers and logistics providers are set up, but even carriers, right, who I think are even more susceptible to this situation. So, yeah, I again, the fraud side makes me nervous, but even probably more so the cybersecurity side of it all, because that's where all it's going to take is one. I mean, Blue Yonder is pretty damn big to take down. And that was more of a European situation than it's too much in the US, but what could that do at the end of the day?
So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because it's largely what we do here at GLCS. So, being a managed IT organization that just works with transportation security or transportation logistics companies, this is a big topic. We work with a lot of companies and manage their technology stacks. So cybersecurity is a part of what we do. And we're not a cybersecurity firm, but we are responsible for the blocking and tackling of the daily processes, the education of the users, the stuff that you put into place to keep everyone out. And if the bad thing happens, we go to the specialist. You go to the doctorate. You go to the doctor. We don't keep those doctors. Those people are a different level. But so that's why we're kind of juicing up the narrative on our side and tying in the freight fraud and the cybersecurity. I had an episode back in December that we did that was all about cybersecurity, and I think 4,000 some odd people watched it. So it was pretty substantial. I probably am off on my number, but it was substantial. So we're just going to continue the narrative and push that message too. So love to chat with you more about that. I have an episode next week about it. So February we're going to do another one. March we're going to do another one. I think it's a huge topic this year. So we could occupy a ton of time. So
I do want to add too, just slightly on that note. It's like, I think what does make me nervous is where are the human levels or human interaction points that could be used to kind of jump skip into organizations as well, right? Like, I'm happy that there's an interest in it, but you could set up a lot of these safeguards, but if it's possible, if your employees don't understand the importance of it, right? I mean, was it MGM, right? Their big cybersecurity issue was because a customer service rep ended up letting the phone call in or something. Like it was
98% of all incidents are user driven.
I mean, one of the things that we see all the time, like we'll go in and automate a system. We go through massive security audit, like on our side, and then we go to do the first automation and they give us credentials and it's literally password is password. And we're like, are we kidding me? We just spent 3.5 months going through a security audit and you're not even like incorporating your own practices inside of your own organization.
Yeah. Password is password.
Oh my God.
Let's so I feel like I would, just because I'll occupy the rest of the time just on this particular one thing. So let's take a 3-minute break, do the commercial, and come back and reset. But I'll reset backwards. So Grace will start with the next question. So Natalia, if you can hit that commercial. If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
So Manifest is the premier global end-to-end supply chain technology event. We are an ecosystem event attracting startups, investors, and industry strategics. Truly anyone involved in global supply chain has a place at Manifest. For next year, we're expecting 6,000 attendees from more than 50 countries. We will be offering 150 conference sessions, and there will be more than 300 exhibitors on our expo floor. And we're very excited because for the first time, we're moving to the Venetian in Las Vegas, which, if you ask me, is the best property in Vegas for a show. And our expo floor is unique because it offers so many opportunities to network and have fun with peers. We keep our audiences well hydrated with coffee bars. We have a beer garden. We have rosé all day. And if you don't like alcohol, we've got a mocktails area. You can pet a puppy. You can swing a golf club. You can play an arcade game on the Manifest Expo floor while browsing the latest technologies.
With nearly 6,000 supply chain leaders that are going to be in attendance, it's certainly the place to be. We'll have over 120 shippers that will be on stage. So you're going to see companies on the plenary stage like New Balance and Target.
So it's an event that focuses on innovation, content, networking, and an incredible show experience. So we're super excited about that and looking forward to welcoming thousands of supply chain experts.
Little dead air there, but we are back. So, all right. Grace, what's your next topic?
Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier with the M&A side of things, right? And just deals happening. I can tell you right now, what day is it? The 9th? That's crazy. It feels much later than January 9th right now. My inbox is booming. Rumors are booming. That's fun too. I can't, again, with just the things that I'm working on my table between rumors and things that are in my inbox, busy gal over here. But I think there is a piece of me that's going into 25 is feeling a little bit of like that 21, 22 area of like visibility investment, which like halfway through that period, I was just like, if I could get another visibility press release right now, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. And you know, everyone had the tool to find your shipment in the chaos of COVID. Did you know? And guess what? It was just on a container ship, and there's nothing you can still do about it. And so going into this year, and I say fearful because, you know, I'm thinking that we might start seeing a little bit of movement in where those technologies, how well they performed in regards to how they either are acquired or maybe fail or gain partnership, et cetera, throughout this year. But I'm starting to feel the tingling of another movement in the AI space in particular, right? And I'd love to hear Chad's thoughts on this because I know he'd probably love to talk about this all day. But everyone's got an AI tool. Everyone is like, did you know that machine learning is AI now? Like, surprise. And this is maybe my warning to investors to just do your due diligence. Figure out how these technologies are being built.
Say it louder for everyone in the back.
Yeah, because you know we talked about Manifest a little bit before. The first time I went to Manifest, I think was the first time where I had a lot of experience in this industry on the operational side of things. Actually, I hate to say like doing
Your mic went wacky, by the way, Grace. So,
Can you hear me now?
there you're good. Yep.
It's because I touched this stupid GoPro thing. They do that. But
Yeah.
So when I was at that conference, I remember just being like, wow, some of these investors have like no idea what they're putting their money into. And this is like maybe why I'd like to use this time to like do your due diligence, like really figure out what that tool is doing, how it's being used, what its competitors are like in this space, what's proprietary, what's just built off of other tools out there that could easily be done within some of these larger logistics providers, 4PLs, etc. And just maybe be cautious and learn from the visibility part of investing and how that worked out, because I think I wrote about the Uber deal and kind of like how they protected themselves, right? Greenpoint within that, or Green Bear throughout that. Just be clearly smart with those. And speaking of the partnership side too, like if you are investing in those technologies, using them inside your own businesses, like again, same thing. Like I think Andrew Silver talks about this a lot too. I think it's going to be a race to the bottom on the pricing for a lot of these tools as well. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I mean with like, I'm starting to see that same trend where it's like,
which that's okay.
Yeah,
as long as everyone knows that that's what it is. And I'm gonna jump in before Chad, because this is actually you're saying one of mine, and I'll skip me. I skipped me last time, but because we hit on what I was going to talk about. But what I think it's not about, if you're going to go in on a VC side, you need to look at the people more than you're looking at the solution. The solution has to be there, and it has to be innovative, and it has to be scalable, and it has to have all the right pieces. But it has to be about the people and what they're bringing to the table, and that you see that this is a longer term play. This is not a 3-year in out. It's not. This is not something you're going to capitalize on, jump in, jump out. If that's what you're looking to do, you're probably investing in the wrong space, or you're rolling dice that you might not get the deal you want out of that. So, because it is a race to the bottom on pricing, and that's perfectly fine. I think everyone knows that that's happening. So.
I love
Chad,
it.
You got to go. Right. I know you're rearing.
Like, I love it. It's like, I think the application is interesting, and I think it's there, and I am interested in seeing, like, does it actually reduce costs? Does it actually add value to the 3PL? I came into this space in 2017, which is on this massive machine learning. Like, this NLP shit is not new. There was a wave in 2016, 2017, 2018 too, but as before all of these new entrants even probably knew that happened, and it all failed. And I think that the technology is definitely advanced from there, and the processing time's faster, and it costs a lot less to train models. So I think that that's good. But I'm interested in understanding, like, what is a 3PL, what is a carrier, what is a shipper willing to pay? And I think that helps drive the cost down. When I come in and I talk to our customers, like, hey, are you looking at this technology? Are you looking at this technology? They're like, I'm not going to be first on that. I'm going to wait for everyone to flood the market, see who innovates, where the use cases are, how it shifts, how it changes. And then once everyone's learned stuff, then I'll come in. And I think that, like, from the VC perspective, they haven't had anything to invest in several years because of the economy. They've just been sitting on cash forever. And it's a double-edged sword. If you write someone a $15 million check and it fails, you write it off as debt. It's a win-win from the VC perspective. So, like, I don't know. I'm excited to watch the race to the bottom, to be honest. I think it's good.
But I'll bet on Pablo and Javi. I like those guys. I think they're great guys. Is it the right move? Am I going to write a $15 million check? I don't have $15 million to write. If I had it, I'm going to put it on me. But somebody, I hope they're betting on those guys. They are good guys. So I know that's what you're referencing on the 15 million, but maybe you are, maybe you're not. But the reality of it is, it's the people. It's got to be the people. And there's a few solutions out there that are extremely good people, They have some metal to them, and they're going to see this through. Matt, you're itching to say
Yeah,
something.
I want to just kind of build off what Chad said. We are entering what I would consider the age of automation in transportation. If you look at the last 100 years of our business, nothing has really that much changed. Boats, trains, and trucks. But what we saw was changes in the law. We saw the containerization movement, the fight the longshoremen had against containers. They lost that fight, and we have them today, and you couldn't run a supply chain without containers. Deregulation in 1980 was the next massive sea shift in our industry. What we are going to see, and we saw an announcement by NVIDIA a couple days ago of a deal they have with Aurora and Continental. Autonomous trucks are coming. This is what the ILA was fighting about, not just cranes and gate technology, but the actual machines that move the freight. And as we look at this with Elon Musk in the ear of President Trump, or the soon to be coming back President Trump, what does that mean for level 4 remote operator and level 5 remote assistant for trucking? The technology is largely there. They're running intrastate today with autonomous trucks. And if you automate the middle mile, or if you automate the ports, or if you automate parts of the inland ports like the rail yards, that is a massive change in the business. And I always harken back to this point. Driving a truck is the 7th or 8th most dangerous job in this country if you look at the numbers of people who died doing it. And so automation is here to reduce cost. Sure. It's to drive safety. Sure. But this is the existential threat our industry has always had. How do we protect ourselves from labor? This is the next sea shift. And to Chad's point, many will fail in this effort. Many have to fail because ultimately you don't change the trends and forces. It goes one direction. And if you know what that direction is, you position yourself to help your clients or your customers navigate those changes. It's going to be wild. It's going to be something that we'll look back on 20 years from now and be astonished that we were there to bear witness to it.
The autonomous thing's really interesting to me. I had written this LinkedIn post the other day where Trucks VC just announced a new fund, $70 million. It's not going into logistics technology. It's all going into autonomous, and they're all early entrants. They're seed stage tech, which means like we're about to see also like this new evolution of autonomous technology that comes into play. It's really exciting, I think.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the
I gotta
idea
leave, Matt. I'm going to interrupt you because this is a shameless plug from Matt Fink for all of us. So I'm going to read it out. This I'm not going to read it out because there's a lot of stuff. But I will read point 2. This is why you hire folks. Shameless plug coming like AVRL, GLCS, and a good attorney like Matt Leffler. So thanks, Matt. We appreciate that.
The thing to keep in mind is that a autonomous truck is not going to have an hours of service issue. They're not going to have meal periods. They're going to have stopping and going in from like one place to another as like a kind of a trainless, trackless trolley. This is going to be the middle mile that gets automated, and how much of that changes our business. Once those doors open, you never close them. Our technology often outpaces our ability to regulate it. But regardless of whether we regulate it well or not, it doesn't matter because all of our global actors across the world are investing in the same thing. This is why one of the big investors for Kodiak was the Department of Defense. Like this is the world we live. Containerization wouldn't have happened but for the Vietnam War. That's why they built the Port of Oakland. Like the history of this business is fascinating, and it's all about the law and the technology that helps shape how we get our things.
No, this is going to be a very interesting 2 decades. I think you're right on the money because I've said 10 to 20 years myself before this really finalizes it with automation. 10 to 20 year journey with the truck specifically. I don't believe we'll see full automation for at least 10 to 15 years at the earliest. I think there's too many battles.
It's what's going to happen when that truck, even if it's in the port, when it rolls over and it kills 2 longshoremen. What's going to happen?
Lawyer. What's going to happen?
You sue the manufacturer of the autonomous truck, and you sue the owner of the truck, the operator. This is the path it's always been. I would say, as we look at this, the future of supply chain, it's going to be absolutely astonishing, and I think it's going to be fun to watch. And I'm excited to see how this all kind of unveils itself to us.
All right, going in reverse, unless we have anything else to talk about automation, AI, I'm sure we could occupy forever on that. We just burnt the whole time here.
Yeah.
So Let's hit one more, and then we'll wrap her up. So I'll go over just a little bit.
Leffler, what do
Chad,
you want
you
to
got-
talk about? You want to talk about Harry Potter? Or what do you want to talk about?
I really think we need
Yes.
to talk about why Sauron and Celebrimbor made the 3 Elven rings first. That's absurd. They made the 16 first, the 9 and the 7. It's absurd. Rings of Power is wrong, Bane. I'm sorry. It's wrong.
It can be wrong. It's still good.
No, it's not.
Okay,
I didn't enjoy it that much. I watched it because I was on airplanes. So
I want to just mention everyone on this call. So the people who are watching us, if you don't understand the way of safety and maintenance in the trucking industry, let me just scare you for a moment. 22% or so of every commercial vehicle, if you inspected them right now, this minute, they would not be safe to operate on our roads. This is not an aberration. It has been like this for a long time. If I was a grocery store and I had 5 gallons of milk, I said, one of those gallons is unsafe. You'd say, Matt, I would prefer not to buy milk from you. And I'd say, unfortunately, that's not an option. This is our supply chain. Whether we want it or not, this is the supply chain we deserve. And if we are comfortable with knowing that 80% of vehicles are safe and 20% are not, that's an issue we have to solve at some point, because that bill becomes due eventually.
I love having people like Matt Leffler and Cassandra Gaines in my life, because they're just like, you want to hear a terrifying stat? Most trucks don't even have insurance. And you're like, why? Why even exist?
The minimum insurance for an interstate trucking company is $750,000, established in 1980. It has never been adjusted for inflation. They have tried to raise it multiple times. They never have, and they never will. Right. Except shippers today are saying, hey, we require the motor carriers to have more insurance. And that's a good thing. I mean, the market will correct these things over time, but regulations, man, what are you going to do?
Yeah. It's bananas.
It's bonkers. We will see the Werner verdict by the end of this, probably the next 3 or 4 months. That is the biggest case affecting the transportation industry. It is insane. It's at the Texas Supreme Court now. We will finally have some visibility to that, probably like 3-4 months, but it is a lot of stuff to track this year.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to wrap this up. We did not get circled around. It was a fight for mic time. I don't know if it was a fight for mic time. We all talk, but
this was done on purpose. They wanted to silence me. They won't be able to, though. It was very bad.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you all sooner than later. Matt, you going to Manifest?
I'm on the fence. I'm a teacher now. I don't know if I have the bandwidth to go traveling and gallivanting in Las Vegas, but we'll see.
You make the curriculum. Like, just don't make a test that week.
It's every Tuesday for 100 minutes. These students, I'm telling you, they're astonishing. This is going to be the best year of my life.
You're going to teach them about the United States Postal Service?
It's going to go private, fully private. It'll be interesting. Quasi-federal agency. It's interesting.
Fair enough. So Chad, you're still on the fence, I imagine. You're figuring that one out.
I'm flying in for Monday for happy hour and a dinner, and then I'm gonna fly home Tuesday morning. My team will be there, but yeah.
Okay. Cool. So we'll see everybody except for maybe or maybe not Matt, but I bet you. So yeah, I got the panel. I'll talk about our little party coming up here in a minute. I appreciate everybody coming on. We probably should have went for longer, but it is what it is. These things are nobody wants to listen to all us ramble for 2 hours. So, or maybe
there's comments here saying they want to, Nate, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I will say, shameless plug, if you want to hear me rattle another hour today with Thomas Watson, listen to Sirius XM channel 146 at 6 or 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Kick out. I know there's notes in the comments on your newsletter, which I'd like to talk to you about your newsletter too. So we'll have to hook up on that later. Grace, I appreciate everybody coming. You can hang out if you want to. Just take me a minute to wrap up. And this was great, guys. Love to do this again anytime down the road on anybody's platform, anywhere. So this was absolute blast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, next week, once again, I said it earlier, we have, and I'm getting to the banners unless Natalia, you got it. As I spoke earlier, we'll be chatting about freight fraud with Bain, Dale Prax from Freight Verify, Joe Orr, and Ben Wilkins from the NMFTA. That's next week, Thursday at 1:00 p.m. Central Time. The following week, January 23rd, we'll have someone on I'm excited to have on the show, I should say, that I've known for a very long time. John Hauslon. John's the president of the Minnesota Trucking Association. He's an absolute wealth of knowledge in the industry, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this chat goes. Following that, on January 30th, wrapping up the month, we'll be bringing in the legendary Will Jenkins from Journey. I always enjoy chatting with Will, and the lineup just continues after that. So all the way through February, we have a great lineup, and we'll be doing something live at Manifest as well. The conference season starts just around the corner. For some of you, earlier than this, but I'd thought about joining that, but with the surgery, it puts me back a few weeks. So I'm jumping in at Manifest. February 10th through 12th at the Venetian in Las Vegas. If you haven't got tickets yet, please grab your tickets through our freight movement code. It's manifestvegas.com/freight movement for a discount should you need those tickets still. Monday night, February 10th. We don't have a banner yet for this, but Monday night, February 10th, following the kickoff, the Manifest kickoff, which ends at 7 p.m. Freight Movement and Broker Carrier Summit has partnered to bring you the Big Road Tour. We're kicking off this tour. It's 12 locations over 12 months. And it's kicking off in Vegas. The Big Road Tour is brought to you by Multi-Service Fuel Card. We're doing that after party once again. It starts at 7 o'clock, goes to 10 o'clock. It'll be at Black Tap, which is on the Venetian Casino floor. Watch all social media for further details on this one, but we have lots of room. Should be a great party, good time. After Vegas, we'll have two other locations that we have posted here, and we'll have some socials out on that soon. Next one will be Matt's in Louisville, and then TIA in San Antonio. So with that being said, there you have it. Episode 62 is in the books. 2025 has started with live events, and that is it. Stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.